Hi, and welcome once again to What's the Damage, companion show to the incredibly well-known and popular real play D&D show Roll for Damage, the most important part of your week. So, our heroes on Friday were faced with one final divine challenge: deal with this weird plant monster. After much puzzling, they did end up trying to fight it. Cinder got real big. Baltime had a quick little dip in some stomach acid, but nobody died. Not even a little bit. Of course, it was all a test, so the only consequences for the Shields of Twilight beating a tactical retreat at one point was that Melora made a couple of little frowny faces at Quinn. It wasn't a big deal. Quinn Quinn, who found out some very interesting family history. But Chad isn't on tonight, so we're going to revisit that later, in like a week or so. Instead, we'll be having a lovely, meandering conversation about the challenges of digging something up while it's trying to blast you with laser beams. And then later we'll be talking about side quests, how cute and fun they are, and all that. So as always, stick around after the stream for things to think about, organizations to support, great place to send your spare change. I'm your host, Truth Venson, and this is What's the Damage? Welcome back. Joining me today, we've got three wonderful guests. We've got Serenity, our favorite DM. We've got Laura, our favorite druid. We've got Caleel, our favorite warlock. You may have noticed that all the girls have the same hair color right now. That is on purpose. We are a clique. We're gonna be rude to you in the cafeteria. You can't sit with us. Sorry, Caleel. Anyway.
What is it? On Wednesdays we wear
pink. We pink. Love it. Yeah, so you guys had some fun poking at a giant plant beastie thingy, at least until it started poking back, and then it was maybe a little bit less fun. What's the damage this week?
Fun is an apt word for having something hurt you, but a word.
Choices were made. Many of them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the majority of the episode was taken up by this big creature encounter, I guess would be the right word for the entire thing, because it was a puzzle, it was a battle, it was a test, it was a few different things. So encounter, I think. But yeah, like that did take up the majority of the episode. So just like talk to me a little bit about puzzling through this puzzle, because I would say there was sort of a non-violent section, then there was a violent section. Yeah, you all tried a bunch of things.
We did indeed.
Yeah. I mean, we went in like, no, we don't want to fight, because we always go in fighting. Mm-hmm. So we're all like, no, we'll try diplomacy.
Yeah, it's hard being a ball team sometimes, because um, the character wants to do things right away. You know what I mean? Like Ball Team has like serious ADD. I have serious ADD. He wants to get things done. Like, let's go. Let's get in here, getting out. But I understand that, like, as a group, there's a group dynamic. People have other ideas. So I like to wait for people to like say their ideas. So then I might have something that can be thought of that I didn't think of, and then like help build upon that. And then not just immediately throw out my idea, because sometimes I'm just thinking of like the one track mind. So I like to wait and not do the crazy thing immediately first to see how other people work it out. But that's why when I was like, yeah, let me just go inside the thing and then see if there's something in there, and just go. Like I thought an idea like hours before, but I was like, I'm gonna wait for people to say something else not crazy before I like throw out the crazy thing and just do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes a certain amount of logical sense, right? You had all assumed that the seed was inside, so
yeah.
It could have been inside.
It was, but not in the sense of just inside of it where you could just pluck it out and be like, "Hi, dimension." First of all, I like as a DM, the dimension door does not actually allow you to do that ever. It specifically will just shunt you out of the space. You actually can't go inside of a creature. But like DMs for fun and for funsies' sake will be like, sure, you want to do something crazy like that, I'll allow it. So I allowed it. And in certain circumstances, for instance, against a worm, trying to heal your friends or get them out on the next turn before they die, I'd allow it. I'd be like, yeah, that's a genius use of the spell to like try and save someone, that's going to start taking death saves while they're being digested inside of a creature. Unfortunately, in this case, it just got you stuck in there. But thankfully, you're able to use the spell again to get yourself back out. But yeah, there was nothing in there. And I think the diplomacy was a good start. I think Quinn just didn't quite understand the buildup of the rest of his trials at the time.
No.
To know what Melora was asking of him, in the sense of, it's not that you have to talk your way out of things. It's not that you have to, you can't fight. It's that my tenets are to like protect those around you. Use what your knowledge is. Don't just go in and be the thunder and lightning and force of nature to destroy things in front of you. And if that's what you want to be, that's fine, but that's not who I am. And I think like he was missing that nuance, which was they had to somehow either status affect their group or status affect the boss. And that would completely negate all of its abilities except for its regular attacks.
So was there a non-combat solution to the weird creature puzzle? Or
No.
It was just like, you have to figure out the status effect thing?
Yeah, it was you had to figure out the stat. It didn't have a language. It was like an aberrant creature that Melora had just divined there for the trial specifically, for basically Quinn to come in and try to put into practice what he would have learned from his previous, which is why he got to re-prepare all of his spells, to see if he would continue to use the damage dealing spells that he constantly always took for himself and take that path, or to see if he would re-prepare something like sleep or, bless or bane, or like there are a bunch of different cleric-based spells that can apply statuses to either their friends or their foes. And he didn't use any of them. He did have bless, actually, which I'm surprised he never cast on any of his party. But I was banking, like, that's the way Chad has been playing Quinn, and that's the way the character has been. And he is, I think, in all of the 51 sessions that we've had, has cast bless, I think, all of twice. All of twice.
That's
so he literally does not, he's
accurate.
not a cleric that bolsters his party. He heals. That's not to say he doesn't heal.
Yeah.
He helps them, but he does not bolster the rest of his group for them to do better. He goes in with damage, and then when they go down, he's like, okay, I got to heal for you, but I'm still going to do damage. And he's been more of like a war cleric or a battle type cleric than a protector of the group. And that's what Melora was looking for.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to segue into. Can you tell us about like designing this encounter and this creature because it was pretty layered as far as puzzle battles go.
Yeah. So I knew what I was trying to do for Quinn and for Chad as the character of Quinn, and I knew this was kind of going to be his journey of trying to understand like who he actually is and be okay with that person, whether it was a follower of Melora or a follower of Bane or a follower of neither, and like trying to figure out who he is. And so I knew that there was going to be like 3 stages of these trials to try and give him an understanding of like why things aren't going well for him, to try to have him understand like what are you not doing that isn't working, in the sense of like you wanting to be Melora's like a follower of Melora, or at least understand her tenets. And those 3 stages were trying to get him to understand that at the end, the final stage was to realize, like, can you put that into practice, or are you still going in with the same mindset of, I need to harm the other creature with my abilities in order to protect the people around me. And I just need to be a shield. I just need to stand in front and put myself in front, and that will be enough. And it was trying to teach him like that's not gonna work constantly. And so I knew that at the end of this stage, the creature didn't have a lot of HP. They would have taken it out in probably a couple of. It couldn't move. First of all, it was never going to move. It had 0 speed. So the whole point was not for them to like have to worry about it being able to flank them or like do anything. It had no creatures that it could call on. It just had its abilities. And the elemental blast, which was it every time they dealt damage to it without having a status effect on them or it would suck in the damage, and then on its turn release in a blast all of the damage that they had done to it. So if they had done 70 damage because like 4 characters had attacked it, it would do a 70 damage blast at them with some kind of status effect. And that was the whole reason for the status effect, was to show like it's applying a status effect, maybe if you do the same to it. The issue with the enlarge reduce, it had the right mindset, same with the levitate, except that doesn't really apply like a status effect to it.
Right.
It just increases or reduces its size. That's not really like a status, is like restrained. So if like Perry had have like been able to entangle it, if they had, like I said, baned it, or if they'd blessed their party, if they'd put it to sleep, if they had anything to
Caleel
add
tried
something.
to frighten it. I believe.
Fear would have worked.
Yeah, and I had Hexblade's Curse, but that's not the status effect.
And it was a charisma-based save, and it had I think a +0 to its charisma. I just rolled a 16, which was like super unfortunate, and that fear effect was only for one turn anyways. But they would have seen that would have allowed them to do damage, and unfortunately it just didn't apply. But yeah, it was just an encounter meant to be like very, very easy once the mechanic was figured out. But when you didn't figure it out, it was just devastating. And you see the effects of that. I think the one thing that the party did learn was to run when things get bad. Because there are some encounters that you just can't win, and to just keep going at it when you don't have a solid answer makes sense. And for Quinn to actually say like, no, I'm not going to go back there and put my friends at risk. We don't know how to beat this. And to say like, I'm done. I'm ready to listen and learn. I think that was an interesting lesson, and I'm glad that they made that choice.
Neat. Okay, yeah. Can you two talk a little bit about the actual combat? Because it seemed like it would be really interesting engaging on the ground, because you're trying to puzzle out what the fuck's going on while also fighting.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I think was really good about this episode was it showed that even in defeat, something good can come from it. Like we lost hard, but we learned to run away and regroup. Quinn learned, oh no, we're not going rushing back in there. I can't take it. And Quinn grew as a person. We got our asses kicked, but good things still come from defeat, and sometimes you're gonna lose. And for me, like, the whole thing was like, what do I do? Everything I do is damage. I mean, I tried to entangle and it was like too strong for my little entangle. And nothing else I do or I prepped had any kind of status effect. And like, I was like, we're going into Quinn's big challenge, and I prepped plant growth because I thought it might be useful for my spirit walk. So being in that moment, one of the things that I kind of wish that I had opted for was pulling Campion back, even though I knew I was going to do a little bit of damage, so that maybe we would have had a moment to think. Because once we started and once the ball was rolling, we didn't feel like we had any time to think. It was like, oh no, it hit us like 4 times and we can't do anything to it. And I kind of wish that Perry had, instead of, okay, fine, I'll just let it go, she had pulled Campion out of there and tried to get everybody to gather for a minute to think about what to do. So Perry learned a lesson about going with her gut, which is something she's really struggled with for a while. And since Cynric went crazy and killed Oriana, and Perry learned she should have used her first instinct to dispel things, she's learning a lot more.
That's a statement.
I trust your
Since my friend killed my other friend.
Yeah.
I grew as a person watching that happen.
Yeah, it's challenging for me with Baltine, because the way he's built and the way I play him are two like different things. Because I don't think I made any attacks against the creature. I think I was the only person that didn't attack it. I just was trying to. So I usually in most battles I usually like don't attack to like 3 or 4 rounds in. Usually I'm either healing someone to get like them back up or like doing something else. So like he's very like combat focused, but like I don't have a lot of options to like support in general though. But like I have some, and I usually like every combat I usually use them, because I'm like I'm probably not going to use this ever again until a long rest or short rest anyway. So it's challenging because I feel like that's in theme of like him being duality is like as a character theme. Even though he's like made to fight things, he has a very like seldom approach to like actually wanting to like hurt and harm people and harm things. So I think that's an interesting thing. I think it was kind of, I knew right away, like once the first like reflection thing off, I was like, this is not a typical combat. We're not fighting this thing. We need to find out what else is going on. I didn't have a lot of things in my kit to like figure out besides like my fear thing. And then once it didn't work, I was like, well, I wouldn't have anything else to try it again, to try something else again. So it was challenging, and I don't know, it might lead to this having Baltine branch out to other things, so he's not just like, so he can fit his personality a little bit more. But we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah, so interesting combat. Interesting stuff that happened afterwards as well. So actually wanted to ask you two, because I think your characters out of the party have perhaps the least religious angst. I would have tossed Cynric in there, but like after this episode, who knows? So seems like it's gonna get more complicated for him spiritually soon. But like, how are Perry and Ball coping kind of with all this divine bullshit? Like, have their preconceived notions been challenged like the way some other people's have?
Oh man, I haven't even unpacked this. I think we're gonna probably find out this upcoming episode.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I want to say on a base level, Baltine is fairly secure in his faith of his religion of Avandra, the Changebringer, and he is understanding that there is a higher power to things, but you have control over things in your life as well. There is a path laid out for you, but you can deviate and change course to your path whenever you see fit, or however you see fit in your mind. But I think with him being in that mindset, I think things that come from people who are gods, he understand, like he takes it and he absorbs it, but it's not the end all be all, because he understands there is some urgency that he has of his own and some ownership that he has of his own.
I mean, for Perry, she's never. I had her, she knelt before Melora because, she is of Melora's chosen. But the Oshadin don't worship Melora the way a cleric does. For the Oshadin, she is a symbol of and an embodiment of nature itself. And our job is to protect nature. So while she has like a really deep respect for Melora and the gods themselves, for Perry it's just sort of like, okay, well, I knew Melora existed and I knew there were other ones, and I know that they are here and they are doing things, but my path is my path. Like, she's never going to be the person who kneels and prays. So for her it's like, okay, well, this kind of reaffirms that the gods are not the be all end all. There's no one path and one god for each person, because she's watched Quinn go through this thing with Melora and Bane. And now she's literally stood before Melora and Melora's like, you might need to talk to somebody else. I can't help you with this. I'm so sorry. And there's this like brief crisis of who she is, but not her faith. Like, she still believes in the power of Melora, and she still believes in like the power of nature itself, but she's coming into sort of a believing in her own power in a way, instead of relying on everything outside. Like, she's learning, okay, no, I can control my own power, and I need to, because if I don't, the world is at fate. And also, Thorstein is after my people, and I didn't know that. Now I know that, and that's bad.
A lot of stuff.
We also haven't like touched on it, but like there's been like subtle things of like Baltrim, like he's done rites for like the drow that we had to take care of. He's I think in like one of the first few episodes he buried like people that attacked us, that we had like bugbears or something like that attacked us.
I remember that.
Yeah, and that took a whole like a
so
day.
Long.
Yeah, like there's these subtle things with his, because of his background, his like stat background. Like there's subtle things, and like it just hadn't been brought up because I think it's just like it's not really like it's not important, but it's like just not something like he just was like, yeah, it's just something.
It's not as dramatic as some other things that have happened.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Because obviously the people having big dramatic religious crises are the ones who tend to be at the forefront of these episodes, at least so far. But I think it's also interesting, your two characters who have a more solid sense of self, I think, and a more solid sense of their own faith, sort of reflecting each other. Yeah, so kind of like going on this topic, over the past couple of episodes, we've obviously had some close dealings with gods. So Serenity, I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about designing these gods, these NPCs, like their personalities, their familial relationships, which we are learning a bit about now. They seem very complicated, like who they are versus how they're perceived.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's spoilers, but
no. I mean, I can't tell you the family tree because that's still being learned about. But I mean, all the players know, and I think it's pretty evident that I've steeped a lot of how I've designed the gods of this world in Greek and Norse and Roman myth, and so in those cultures, like, each god has a domain, and there isn't really like a god that's just all around evil. Like, every god is necessary in order to keep a balance of everything going. And so the whole point of this is like, yeah, there are ones that tend to be a part of things that like the general populace would not be happy about most of the time. You know, a god that touts war is not what most people are like, oh, that's great. Love that. Love being stuck in wars all the time. Like, it fucking sucks. Like,
So
people are
fun,
dying
yeah.
around. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that like Ares was a terrible, you know, creation or person. That was just that was his domain, and that was what he, you know, oversaw. But I wanted this to be, I wanted this campaign to have this understanding of like what this pantheon was. And I like the idea of like, especially with a pantheon where, you know, there's not one true god that like oversees everything, is like, these are just beings. They're very powerful beings that were able to use some of that ability to create life. But I've always like in real life struggled with, like, I'm not religious, but I've always struggled with this idea of like God created us in his image. And it's like, well, if he did, then God is not perfect. There's no way, because if God was perfect, we wouldn't be as flawed as we are as creatures. We wouldn't have the nuances and the tenacity and the tendencies that we do. And so I wanted that to come from these creatures, and to see that they are very similar to the humanoid beings and the creatures that are on the material plane. They are part of these creations, and they have just as many flaws as and make mistakes just like the others do, and they're going to be asking for help just as people ask them for help. And so I wanted that dual nature and for that to be understood in this campaign. And I think you're starting to see that as you start to meet them, as like, yeah, they're strong. Yeah, they have abilities that like no normal person would have, but they're also flawed, and they also have personalities, and they're also kind of weird and maybe a bit strange and yeah,
and funny,
and
and
yeah, interesting, and just like anyone you would meet on the street, like, you know. So yeah, that was kind of how I've kind of taken it, and hopefully over the course of the campaign you'll get to see like the entire structure of how everything sort of runs, or get an understanding of them all.
Keeping up with the pantheon.
Yeah.
So did you always intend for like the pantheon to be a major part of the plot, or did this like become more towards the forefront because of character actions, or a mix of both?
Mix of both. I kind of always wanted that to be a part, just because of like the campaign arc and like what I kind of seeded as the main sort of thread of the story that brought everyone together, like given that it's Tharizdun and he's kind of like this thing that no one wants to happen. It doesn't matter if you're butting heads with each other. It's kind of like something that you'll ally against. But I didn't expect them to take this much of a spotlight. That's come more from like the characters themselves and their backstories and the things that have happened and the choices that have been made. I was expecting it to be like way like closer to maybe like the end of the campaign where you'd see more of them. But now you're starting to see them just in like the daily nuances of what the characters are doing. So I think it's an interesting turn, and it's fun for me to kind of like flesh them out more, which I didn't think I was going to have to do until like a long time from now. But yeah, I think it's been fun.
Awesome. Okay, and I think with that, we'll move on to our topic for today. So the topic for today is side quests. I kind of think this is sort of a sister episode almost to the beach episode, since it's all about like taking a break, a short break from the plot of the campaign. Or is it? We'll discuss that. So to start off, what do you guys think distinguishes like a side quest from a normal part of the plot quest? Like, does it have to be completely plot non-relevant, or just a bit out of the way? Is it more of a tonal thing? Like, what's the difference?
I mean, part of it is is it a requirement? Like, do you have to complete this to continue with the plot? Or is this like a side mission where you're going to pick up something to go with the plot? Because like, that's the thing I like about a side mission, is if it's something that still moves stuff forward and is still relevant, then yeah, give me all the side quests. Let me explore the world, but still gain something that matters. So I don't think that it needs to be something that is completely unrelated to the plot or completely, off the beaten path. But I see it as sort of anything that is not like 100% necessary to keep going. Like if you don't do this, the story stops. That's not a side quest. Mm-hmm. That's an offshoot of the main plot to get back to the main plot.
Right. I think I'm in agreement with that statement. I think if it's not like 100% delegated to the main quest, it's a side quest. Like if it's like a personal quest, like this is sort of a side quest. We're on a personal quest for Quinn. It's not our main quest, but it's a personal quest for Quinn. Even though like it ties in with the story and all that. Mm-hmm. We could have came here at mostly any other time.
Yeah.
We're doing it because we're on the way. We're in this continent. So it's like, well, when are we going to come back to this continent? Which we might come back sooner than we thought. So it's like, this is a side quest. So like, I would think anything that's not devolved to the main quest is a side quest.
Yeah. I mean, obviously side quests can be go do this thing and all you get is a magic item and it doesn't move any plot forward. Or it can be like every character's backstory is all side quest, right? Like a DM does not have to pick up any of those threads ever and keep their plot moving forward. Now, would that be fun for the characters? Probably not. They'd be like, why did I write up this like essay for my character to like, to give them personality and it's not even being used? Like, oh, we passed by like my hometown. My family wasn't even home. Like, what the hell, But technically, like, those are side quests, unless the DM is specifically making the main plot a tie-in to a specific character's story and then making them the focal point. But generally, DMs try not to do that because then that kind of, like, sidelines the other characters. Mm-hmm. You try to make some overarching story and then the characters just fall into it. But I think side quests are anything that doesn't tie into whatever your main story thread is. And sometimes, like, at least for players, obviously DMs, we know whether this ties in to main or not. I think sometimes for players, it's hard to even see that. Sometimes they think that they're going on a main quest and it has nothing to do with the main storyline. And sometimes they think they're going on a side quest and it's like actually a main story quest and they kind of had to do it. And the DM would have pushed them there in some way or another. So I think that those are kind of like the best side quest, main quests. Mm-hmm. If you can kind of make it kind of unknown to the players whether, this is even like, are we supposed to be doing this? Do we have to do this? Can we kind of leave it? And also like for a DM, I think also like even main quests can be kind of, even your main plot can kind of be side questy. I think most DMs that are good at what they do will have just consequences for not handling something. Like if the players decide like, I just don't even want to do this. It's like, okay, I'm not going to allow that to break the game. I'll have you go off and do this other thing and you'll feel like it's really important, but maybe the city will get sucked into a black hole because you just didn't care. And I like that. Like, I like not forcing the players to make a specific decision or like railroading them into a main quest line, allowing them to kind of feel like, and even if you are giving them like subtle pushes in certain directions, making them feel like they're making all the decisions and they're choosing the path that they want to take in a game. But yeah.
Cool. Okay, so like in general, do you guys enjoy side quests? Like, do you think they're fun? Does it depend on the side quest? Do you prefer like staying on the main path normally, or like how do you feel about detours?
It depends.
Yeah.
I love detours. I've never been in Skyrim, like the game Skyrim. I've never finished the main story of Skyrim. So I love side quests. And like there were some like uses in like having like side quests that don't mean literally anything to the plot, just for like a break or a buffer for something. Like if you feel like things like there's like a down period, and it's like, let them get, if you're like in a group, let them get their confidence up for like when they go into a main quest. Like there are uses for like things that just aren't tied to the story at all. But I think that can get a little boring if it's repeatedly at different points of the plot, like all the time. So I would probably prefer like more of like a personal quest or a side quest that's linked in somehow, where we're like, if we didn't go down that snake hall, we would have gotten like a snake amulet, and then like that's like the key to like one boss that we could have fought in the future. Like like it's like something that's like, oh, we didn't realize the importance of this now, but like now that we did it, it's useful for something that it could have been done still, but we could have had a different angle to approach it at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then a personal quest just makes you feel, even though it's side, it's still more. Since it's personal to you, it makes you feel like you are on a not a timer necessarily, but like it's more pertinent to you to do anyway. Like it's almost at the same level as the main quest for you.
Yeah. I agree with Caleel. I'm the person that always tries to 100% every game. I want to explore every area. I want to do every little side quest. I want to see that 100%. So I love a good side quest.
Have you been in Skyrim?
I have not played Skyrim, which is a shame, and I need to get on that.
Really bad.
It is really, really bad, y'all. Talk to my husband.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you.
But like I agree with Caleel. I think that there are purposes to like little bitty side quests, things that bond groups together. Like a lot of really good character moments can happen from a bullshit side quest that didn't actually accomplish anything for your main quest. But maybe your characters grew. Maybe they learned something about each other, or maybe a conflict that has been brewing for a while has finally come to a head. And it came to a head while it didn't matter. If we have to stop and fight this out, it's not like we're like 5 minutes from fighting Thurstead. So
you bring this up now?
Really right now?
I don't like your hair, Carrie. I wait the whole campaign. I still like it.
Yeah.
No healing for you this battle.
No.
On your
own. But I think my favorite side quests are the ones that you don't know whether they matter or not in the grand scheme of things. And, maybe they do. And you find out 18 sessions later, oh shit, that sword we got from that random quest from that merchant whose store got robbed, that sword is the sword that's gonna help us beat this boss, because oh shit, turns out he's resistant to everything but this damage. That sort of thing, I really like that. And I like personal quests. I like the idea of, okay, well, we detoured through the jungle because we were close-ish and Quinn wanted to go to that temple, and hey, Perry's people might be in the jungle, maybe not, we don't know, we could find out. So we learned some stuff, and everybody got a glimpse of something in the future, something that matters. And those quests are the ones that I like the most, because they feel important, even if they're not the straight line run to River Run. You know what I mean?
All that. No, I mean, I hate fluffy side quests. I do think that they are needed sometimes, and I will make them a la Flumph. But
I'm looking at you, Caleel.
Oh, Flumph.
Side quest killer right here. That's my title.
Or the murder mystery, which can be fun. But I make those very few and far between. I am a huge nerd for foreshadowing, like in novels, in video games, in watching other DMs run their campaigns. Like when I watch something and I'm like, why was that a thing? And then 80 sessions later, holy shit, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That, or, 20 chapters later or whatever, that everything clicks. And I'm like, I see now. I know what that is. That to me is fun storytelling. And so that's what I try to do with the side quests that I make. And those are and as a player, those are the side quests I also like to run. Also, I try to mix up the feeling of urgency with the feeling of you're okay, you've got a little bit of time. Because generally, if players feel like they have to go in a specific direction, like for me as a player, if you're telling me the world's ending and we have 7 days to fix it, don't then give me a side quest and tell me like, well, there's like these 5,000 gold diamonds over here that you can get, and I'm like, yeah, but I got 7 days. Like it's great that I can resurrect myself, but the world's ending, so I don't really have a lot of time to do that. Because if I get lost in the caves for 7 days, I'm dead anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think it's knowing that balance between like the important stuff and the non-important stuff, and giving players the option to take that and to make it not feel like if we don't do this, it's the end of the world. If we don't get that sword, now we can't beat the final boss. Like, I never want to do that. I never want to make it like, well, you chose not to do the side quest, which is, it's a side quest for a reason. Therefore you're screwed at the end of the game. But yeah, I'm the type, like, really for me, side quests have to move the plot forward in some way, whether it be a character's backstory, whether it be some lore that we wouldn't have known otherwise, whether it be like, we gain an item that'll be important down the line, whether like some weird and mysterious thing happens and then I write it down in my notes, and again, like, 3 months later it comes to pass when we fight a boss and I'm like, oh shit, that was what that mist was in that cavern. That to me is what a good side quest is. If it doesn't have that, generally I'm not interested. I get kind of bored. And I don't 100%. I just do all the stuff that gets me all of the world lore. That's the type of gamer I am.
So what was like the secret extra special thing at the end of the flump quest then?
It wasn't. But I knew that's why I'm saying but that's the thing is like, I know that I have like, not everyone plays like me. I have to add stuff in for players who do enjoy the 100%ing, who do enjoy just the fun, enjoyable moments, and who just want to have some moments to RP with other characters and to have fun in this world. So I can't just make a world for myself because it wouldn't be fun for my players. So yeah, that was just purely for fun. They would have learned some stuff at the end about flumps and stuff like that, but it wouldn't have been anything that would have like gravely or vastly affected the rest of the game. That was just meant to be fun, and I wanted to throw flumps in. And they'd been talking about it a little bit, saying like they wanted to meet one and stuff like that. And I was like, this is the perfect time, so let's do it.
The secret was that everyone's like internal like telltale counters was like, they will remember this about Baltaim.
I mean, Telltale Games
it did kind of like highlight Baltaim's impulsiveness, because he was just like, I'm gonna, and he said it, and when he said it, I was like, nah, and it was too late.
The best part of that was Campion was already feather falling, so literally did not need.
This was an unnecessary move.
So. It highlighted his loyalty to his friends, new or old. That's what it highlighted.
Okay. Khaleel. We'll go with that, Khaleel.
I love it. Yeah, it was a good moment.
Wonderful. So like, in all of your opinions, what's the right balance then of like fluffy side stuff and main plot?
For me, I think it depends on your group. There are a lot of groups who like delving dungeons for magic items. They don't care if it moves anything forward. They'll like just do that. And I think that that's a thing that you like when you sit down to tell a story with a group of people at the table, you understand what type of game they want to run and they want to play. And you add those things in. So I think the balance is really dependent on the people playing and what they enjoy. You're trying to like D&D or tabletop RPGs is collective cooperative storytelling. You want to make sure that everyone's having fun at the table, not just you as a DM or not just the players. And so you try to find this balance between what you enjoy and what your players will enjoy, and then you try to tell that collective story. So I would say it really depends. You know, it could be 50-50, it could be 70-30, it could be 90-10.
I think for me personally, I think after just maybe not even after, but just at some point during a longer arc, just have something just to break up the seriousness and like the like we're in go mode, just to get like a little like decompression. And then it doesn't have to be like if there's like you have like a medium length arc, like 2 back to back like that, maybe after that then something just to break it up a little bit, or if you have like a long one, then like something just to break it up. I think it's just like enough like fluff side quests just to break up the pacing of it, so it's not always like you're in a rush to go somewhere, and you're not like feeling like the story just always moving, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with Serenity. It depends on who's playing and who you're playing with. Because if you've got a group that nobody likes any of the fluffy stuff, we want everything to matter. If it doesn't matter, I don't give a shit. Then it's you know, then you don't want any of that. But like me personally, it's nice to breathe sometimes. Like especially if you're in like a really heavy campaign, there's a lot going on, and it starts to feel like actually stressful all the time because you sit down at the table and like, oh God, the world's ending. Don't forget the world's ending. By the way, the world's ending. Then you need a moment to say, just, okay, the world is ending, but you've got time to stop it.
It's beach episode. Hold on.
Just you've got time. I think that those side quests give players and characters a moment to remember that there's still time, because that constantly ticking clock, a lot of times you give players a deadline and they will remember that deadline, and then they'll start to shorten it because they forget. It's like, okay, we have all this time, but like 4 sessions later we forget how long we've been on the road. So now it's, oh no, now we have like less time and less time and less time. So a small fluffy thing that reminds you, oh no, you're okay, the clock is not ticking that fast, helps to kind of keep players from freaking out and forgetting that that you know, there is a pacing here.
Yeah, perfect example, like in Zeritamar, like I was like, when my thing came up, I was like, guys, we gotta help out everybody here. Like, there's like 4 days. I'm like, wait, has it many days has it been? Like, I'm like, come on, like let's go. Like, I'm like in go mode. I'm like calm down. It's gonna be all right. Nothing major is gonna happen. Mostly, like I might miss something, but like I don't I highly doubt it. And I think Serenity said like she's not gonna put a side quest to hinder us in something that we want to do like that. Doesn't mean that just like, well, then you weren't expecting them to do it at that point, because like you can't be like, well, like you said, the world's ending 7 days, but here's a quest that can take you 6.5 days. Now do both.
Like a dramatic entrance.
Yeah, like so yeah, like that was like during that time I was personally like, stressing myself out for like a time clock that had nothing, like that was not placed on us at all.
Well, Dave was following us around like all the time, like, y'all, we need to hurry up.
Yeah, no, because of the river end stuff that he learned.
So he and Oriana were just like watching us with the clock, like, y'all, you remember River End, right? You remember River End? We gotta go. And we're all like, but we want to help this lady and maybe do something
like,
nice.
Fuck that lady.
And they're like, no, fuck it, River End now.
She's not all that important.
So,
nobody.
But like, I always trust that Serenity's not gonna put me in, you know, she's not gonna give me an option, and like if I take this option, I have just fucked everything else up. Like, here's a quest, but if you take it, the world ends. Too bad.
Game over, guys. You save the fluff, but Tharzdun kills it immediately after you save it.
Yes, the fluff survived.
Oh no, it's like when you let like a little captive bird go and the hawk gets it immediately.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's the thing.
Did it, so, guys? And the dart just.
Yeah.
We won.
Hey, victory. Yeah. Awesome. So then for like you guys as players, Serenity's mentioned this a little bit. I think Caleel, you just touched on an aspect of this. So what does it take to like make a side quest enjoyable and like captivating?
It's I don't know. I say this. I feel like we say this is like our catchphrase here. It depends.
It depends.
Because I really do find enjoy like I can't think of a like in-game experience. Oh no. When you had Spa Day, that was like a very enjoyable day. Like just down thing. It wasn't a side quest necessarily, but like side quests are just like just chilling and like just like there's more RP focus. Like that can be really enjoyable. I feel like getting to know that player's character more is like for me personally is like a very like high like aspect of like D&D of like learning another character's backstory, like that someone put time in and thought out. That can be really enjoyable. But I think also quests that are, I agree probably that quests that are in some sense that have something important or imports of like to your character makes it for me a little bit more enjoyable, because sometimes I can be a little bit like ADD and just like, is this really like necessary right now? Like I don't know if saving this woman's cabbage cart is that,
like, I'm bored with
necessary
this
at this moment.
Yeah.
But like doing something for Quinn, like it's not directly tied to me, but like I'm invested for his character. Like I'm like, I want to see this character that's been like planned and thought out, like what their test and their trial is. Like it's interesting to me.
Yeah. I too will say it depends. But like I super enjoyed like the tiny offshoot where we were trying to figure out the drug thing and we all wound up somewhere where we were dancing. Yeah. And it was just all of us in a bar dancing for no reason. And it turned out to be this like really cute moment where first we had two characters dancing to no music in the different bar. But for me, I like the quests that feel like they matter, whether it's to my character or to someone else's, or something that feels like we're doing something good or big or important. Like, yeah, okay, it was some rich kid who definitely shouldn't have been fucking about with drugs and hags, but we wound up doing something good for an entire city. Mm-hmm. And yeah, okay, sure, we all really got fucked up by the Nefriti, but we did help that poor woman who would have had no idea what happened to her family. So I like the quests that feel like they matter.
I think what goes into making a good side quest is knowing your players, knowing how to hook them. It's honest to goodness. Like that's, if you know your players, even if you hook one of them, if the group is cohesive enough, the rest will follow, because that, just like Caleel said, like Baltaim's invested in Quinn because they've become friends. And so if you can hook that one person and the group is cohesive enough, they'll be like, you know what, this person's invested, I'm invested with them. And then doing something interesting with whatever, is going to happen with that quest and involving everyone in it, then makes them feel like, oh, okay, we didn't do this for nothing. You made the right choice. We feel good for following you. Like this wasn't a waste of our time. But I think understanding the players and the characters and knowing like what will hook a specific person is the way to go with side quests. And that's, again, just knowing your table and knowing your players and understanding what they enjoy. But that's really what goes into making a good side quest. You can really make a good side quest out of anything by tying, again, even if it's not a big flashy character backstory moment, even if it's little nuances of who they are, or giving them moments to figure out things that even they didn't know about their character that they're just tying in as this story progresses, are ways to really make interesting moments and allow for that growth. So I think it's like finding out how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like that Quinn reveal of like his mother, that was like I'm like, this is not my story. Like I was like, oh, I like, you could see me smile at like one point like in the stream. I'm like, oh man, like I think that's just true of like life in general. Like if you're a good friend, usually when your friends have something important to them or like they're passionate about, usually are very supportive and want to like see them succeed in that. So I think like that's just true in real life as well, you know.
Yeah. I mean, because it's like we wouldn't have gone on that mining expedition if we didn't care that Campion wanted to do something for that dog. Because, yeah, okay, the money's nice, but Campion really wants to improve Greybone. And we don't know that he didn't.
He'll never come up.
We may never know that he didn't.
So but for us,
it's fine. But like that quest mattered because we wanted to help our new friend who didn't feel like he had any friends. We wanted to do something nice for him.
Oh, bless his heart.
Oh, bless Campion. Perry's going to teach him to brew proper tea so he stops injecting those herbs.
But see, then in doing that quest, they also learned of this entity still watching them, following them, and influencing the world around them. And so tying that in for the rest of the group to make it not just feel like a whole wasted amount of time for a single piece of ore.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a little sprinkle of plot for you.
Here's a little tiny thing. It really, like, it was just an encounter, and it was just like a weird feeling and seeing weird things, but it's that like little tiny like spicing of stuff that makes it then intriguing.
Yeah, I thought like that little thing that happened in the mine actually sort of prepped the story, or prep the story. That's not exactly what I want to say, for what's happening here in the jungle, because it's more like voices and weird brain stuff. So I think plot-wise that flowed very well. Okay, well, going back to something Serenity was saying, so what goes into, like, how do you design a good hook? Like, so you're talking about you need to know your players, but like, how do you like get that little shiny lure out there so the players can see them? Because you are sort of having to lure them away from the main plot, so it needs to be enticing.
Yeah, I think it's flavored differently depending on where you're going. So like if you're going to a big city, it's very easy because you're going to a big city and most players are like, oh, well, we want to explore this place. And so then it's easy to be like, oh, well, when you go to this district or when you go to this area, you know, you make a perception check and you see something maybe, or you hear something, or you go into a bar and some conversation happens. It's a little bit more difficult when you're like doing like a jungle or like a mine or something like that. But I think the main thing is to figure out what ultimately is the end goal of the quest. Like, what are you trying to get out of the players, and what emotion or understanding or story element or like item or whatever do you want the players to end up with at the end of that quest? And then you generally make the hook. At least that's how I do it. I make the hook based on that thing. And sometimes it's like to foreshadow something that's coming in the future. Sometimes it's to introduce an interesting NPC that maybe they'll see again, maybe never again. Maybe it's to create plot intrigue for whatever reason. Maybe it's just to have a fun day in a spa, or, you know, in a bathhouse, or walking in a courtyard of the city and seeing beautiful things. But I think it's just like understanding like what are you what ultimately do you want to get out of it? Is it RP? Is it story? Is it lore? Is it items? What is it? And then you can build the hook around it.
Okay, awesome. And that brings us right up to our time for today. So thank you guys so much for coming on to this little talk show that we have. And thanks a bunch. It's been great. We're never coming on again. This is the final episode. I'm kidding. No, but yeah, thank you guys. Thank you.
Ruined it all.
We ruined it all. No, we're all retiring.
Thank you for watching the last episode.
Sorry, guys.
The final episode.
The campaign is ending on that Queen cliffhanger. That's it. That's all you get. It's over.
We never find anything else out.
Oh no! Imagine that'd be terrible. If you really hate your audience, just do that. Well, thank you to the audience for tuning in once again. Make sure to tune in next week for the next episode. Tune on Friday for the next episode of Roll for Damage, where we'll have some follow up to everybody and Quinn's big revelation. Check out our store, check out our Twitch, check out our YouTube channel, check out our Discord. We post lots of D&D memes there. We're very funny, I promise.
Or at least we think we are.
We assume so.
We're hilarious.
We laugh.
Yeah, we laugh ourselves.
Yeah, we laugh.
Hey, that's all you need. You just need to do laugh at yourself.
We laugh, and maybe you will too. Awesome. Thank you to Sunburn Lady Meows for doing our beautiful logo and wonderful theme song. And that's it. That's all for tonight. We will see you next week. Bye.
See you laters. Have a good night.
Night night.